Hey guys, yeah, I'm doing this real quickly or as best I can, unscripted, uncut, and on the fly. But this is a bit of a follow-up to a video, a live stream I did last night, or 2 nights ago actually, basically at around 12:21 or 12:31 in the morning on February 17th. And basically, this is a follow-up on that because some people kind of felt like I was dragging a little bit, so I do apologize. I was tired and everything, but I felt like I just had to get out of the way. And I even acknowledged that, in the video. Now, basically, to do a bit of a follow-up here, I should say, on what I said in that video, like I mentioned, I understand where Lance is coming from, where guys like Lance and Dylan Thomas and Dumbsville and Alex Hedgehog and many of them are coming from when it comes to Ian Flynn. They basically feel that Ian is letting his ego get in the way of what should be a good comic, what should be a great canvas to paint and create and write a great story. And mostly to give the fans what they want. And I can understand, as I said in the video, I can understand where they're coming from. But one thing I did mention is what I think contributes to this whole ego thing when it comes to Ian Flynn is the fact that he's taken on way too much all at once. I mean, it's ironic that Linkara did a video yesterday, one of his weekly reviews, on Youngblood Strike File. The one thing that Linkara talks about in that video is not even 4 or 5 issues in, Liefeld was starting to work on spin-off comics for the origins of the characters. But he was also taking on some other projects as well. And the result of him taking on all these other projects, like I said, spin-off comics that did the origins of the characters of Youngblood, as well as some other titles, you can noticeably see the result of that in his drawings and his writings for the stories. Like, his story writing and his artisticness were kind of wavering because he was separating himself. He was pulling himself in all these different directions from what Linkara, Lewis Lovehog, in his recent review video, was kind of getting at. And I see that being very similar with Ian Flynn. Ian Flynn, when the Sonic comic was still under the Archie license, made the announcement that he was going to start working on the IDW's TMNT Adventure Comics, the TMNT Adventure Comics based on the Nickelodeon CGI series. And when I heard that, one part of me was like, well, that's great news, but that doesn't help the Sonic comic in any shape, form, or fashion. I mean, yeah, at this time he was actually giving up some duties, or he was actually sharing duties, I should say, with other writers, like his wife Aaliyah Baker. There was some new writers coming in, some established writers, that were all getting a chance to write for the Sonic comic when it was under Archie Comics. But still, it was always Ian Flynn at the forefront. That was the main guy that Archie would go to, and that a lot of fans would associate with the comic. And I think this is why on numerous occasions during his podcast known as the Bumblecast, Ian Flynn, in his own unique way, would kind of make it known that he kind of wants to distance himself from being known as the guy that only writes Sonic comics by accepting all these other offers to write for other stuff outside of Sonic. Even if it's for the Sonic cartoons, or as what Lance basically fears he may end up doing and is rumored to possibly be doing in the future, writing for the games. Not saying that's true or not. but basically, I could see a similarity between what Linkara was talking about with Life Out and what he was doing his run with Youngblood and some other titles, and how him spreading himself out all over the place kind of affected his work instead of focusing on one particular story. I mean, honestly, it makes sense when you think about it. And if you want more in-depth information about it, check out Linkara's latest video on it, which is Youngblood Strike File, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, because it's ironic that he touches upon that in that video. Now, there were other things that Lance and Dylan, who posted the same video a couple of days after Lance did. Lance is the originator of the video. There were some things that Lance did bring up that were kind of factual. Now, here's the thing. From what I've read, not a lot of people are fans of Lance's. I get that. You know, not a lot of people like his opinions. Not a lot of people like Alex Hitchfox's opinions. You know, not a lot of people like Dumbsville's opinions. Heck, nobody likes well, not nobody, but not a lot of people like my opinions. But, you know, it's a free country. You know, we can say what we want. But the point is, not a lot of people like Lance's opinions, but he does bring up some good, legit facts here. You know, he showed the financial graphic difference between when the Sonic comic first debuted for IDW to where it is now. Like when it debuted in that first month, in those first 4 weeks, and a little afterwards, it was doing great. Now, it feels like it's not even in the top 50 or top 100. And that's kind of hard to swallow. Lance also brought up some other issues as well. You know, he brought up the fact that Ian Flynn seems to show a lot of biasness. You know, disdain, if you will, towards a character like Sally Acorn. You know, he brought up numerous times Ian would put Sally in a situation where she was either killed off, sort of semi-killed off, you know, gone, you know, put through this hell or that hell, all because he had a favoritism towards Amy Rose. He even brings up that Amy, and even I've noticed this before Lance brought it up, Amy seems to, in the IDW comics, have a mixture of personality traits. You know, a mixture of her own personality traits and Sally's. You know, and it's hard to not notice that. So he brings up that, and I can probably understand where he's coming from, because he states, and I think even Ian Flynn did state this in some time, you know, in some cases, even when the Sonic was under the Archie license, that he wants to make the comic closely resemble the games. Now, basically, Lance goes on and talks about other issues as well. Talks about the Freedom Fighters and how basically what would have been one of the story arcs that would have led into the Freedom Fighters Sonic Universe arc was a means, in his opinion, for Ian to try to write the Freedom Fighters out of the picture. I don't think that's true. I think, honestly, the original plan was to use Sonic Universe and the story, which would serve as a prelude in the main comic, as a way to reintroduce these characters to the readers. Not just to the original readers that were with the comic from the beginning, but the newer readers. So the new readers can understand, you know, who Sally is, who Bunnie is, who Antione is, who Nicole is, you know, who Rotor is, you know, stuff like that. And they would do it in unique ways by pairing them off with characters that you don't think they'd be paired off with. But anyway, getting back on point here, I don't think that's the case. That's the one thing I can disagree with Lance on. I don't think that was the case. But I could see where he's coming from when Ian wants to make the comics more like the game. Like, you're one of the first major story arcs you're doing, within your Shattered World Crisis / Panic in the Sky arc, is you're doing an adaptation of Sonic Unleashed, when you should be saving that for later on, like after, Shattered World Crisis and Panic in the Sky. That I can understand and agree with, that maybe saving that element would have been best. Because you're adding all these things in at once, but since you were introducing, but here's the thing. Since they were introducing the character of Chip, which is from Sonic Unleashed, it only made sense that you tied in the Werehog stuff as well. But yeah, I can understand where he's coming from. Like, you could have saved something like that for later on, and still found a way to bring Chip into the picture. I could see that. I could understand that. But, what are you going to do? It's done and over with. But, like I said, what are you going to do? But like I said, I understand where Lance is coming from. And I know I repeated myself saying that, but I understand where he's coming from. Because it's not just the sales that he brings up that's a legit fact, but there's other things he brings up as well. He brings up something that I totally didn't remember or recall. But he brings up that during the early days of the comic, I think even when it was starting to become more Sate-Am-like, that Ian Flynn would write in, through the fan mail section at the end of the comic, and point out all the problems that he saw with certain issues that he read, and at the same time would pester the people at Archie, or mostly on the Sonic team for the comic, or mostly on the team for the Sonic comic. He would pester them to try to get a job with Archie Comics, and that his own critiqueness of each issue in the fan letters that he would send was his way of doing so. Now, eventually he did get in, obviously, and originally, I'll be honest with you, and I think Lance could even agree with this, when everybody heard that Ian was going to be the new lead writer on the book, we all were happy because, hey, it's one of our own. It's the guy that did Other-M, or Other M, if you will. It's one of our own now leading the charge. He's going to give us what we want. And at first it looked like he was doing that. He was giving us what we wanted. At the same time that, yes, he even acknowledged that he was going to clean up the book a little bit, try to make it more simplified or whatever, or more or less uncluttered. But, we were all happy. That is until things started really changing. Like, there were certain decisions that he made, and Lance did touch upon these that, kind of make sense. Like, the whole Fiona deal. It's like, when Ken Penders and Carl Bowlers, despite how you feel about them, were working on the book, even Jonathan Gray was working on it. When they were working on it, despite how you feel about them, never once did any of them plan to turn Fiona into a bad girl. None of them. None of them had that plan. Ian Flynn comes in and says, you know what? Fiona was better off being a bad girl. She was better off being rebellious, doing her own thing, being an anti-hero. And thus, we ended up getting what we did. I think, well, what was it? Issue 172? So, it was like, okay, that happened. And that was probably one of the decisions that some fans were divided about. Because it's like, everything was setting up. Obviously, a lot of fans could see it coming. I could see it coming. Everything was setting up for Sonic to get back together with Sally. We had our moments here and there. So everything was shaping up to go in that direction. And that obviously would open the door for what fans been wanting. Fans have been hoping for, and that's Tails getting together with Fiona. But Ian did what he did. Ian did what he did because I guess he just liked Fiona better off as a bad girl. Even though, one thing that I don't know if Lance pointed this out or not, even though the Fiona in Other M was part of the Freedom Fighters. She was a good girl. She was the love interest of Sonic there, but yet he goes the complete opposite here in the main book. So, I don't know. I mean, I can understand that he did that to open the door for Sonic to get back together with Sally, which I will admit is probably one of the better things he's done. And I will admit he did what was needed to do it. He casually took his time. It was a slow build. You know, we went through the Iron Dominion arc where you pretty much, you know, teased a different relationship for both characters. And, you know, eventually just used that to kind of strengthen and build up more of the Sonic Sally deal. And that's what he did. He built it up. He even gave us hints after the 1 year Iron Dominion arc, you know, other stories that came of those two getting back together. And eventually when we got to 222, that's what we got. We ended up getting them back together. And it was done in a way that made sense. It really was. But yeah, Lance brings up a lot of stuff here, a lot of things that Ian did that he feels that Ian shouldn't have done, and basically shows that Ian only cares about himself and nobody else. You know, he brings up the whole Comicsgate deal with Jonathan Gray and how Ian Flynn came to Jonathan's defense, and even Ian himself kind of going against the fans, the very fans that kind of pay his salary by purchasing the comics that, you know, hold the stories that he wrote or co-wrote for those comics, whether it's Archie, IDW, Marvel, DC, you name it. So, you know, he brings up those things. Like I said, he brings up the whole Sally situation and stuff. It's I'll put it this way, again, whether you like Lance or you don't, it's a very informative video, and I suggest checking it out. But, like I said, it's kind of ironic, and let me check something right here so I can see the battery life I have. Okay, it's checking the battery life. But like I said, it's kind of ironic, as the title of my video suggested, of the timing. Kind of ironic and coincidental, because the Sonic movie came out recently this past weekend, and a lot of people pointed out, you know, during its premiere over the weekend before, like in places like LA and New York and other parts of the world, and as we were building towards the official debut in theaters this week, a lot of people pointed out how, you know, how the movie was being received in a more positive light with the changes that were made to it, mostly to Sonic's design, because, you know, the original design for Sonic, when the first trailer came out, or teaser trailer came out last year almost, going to be about a year, it definitely did not do the movie any favors. It did not do Paramount any favors. And basically everybody, true diehard fans, and even the casual fans, let them know about this. They said, look, we're not going to go out and spend $15, $12, $7, whatever you want to call it, on the movie ticket to support this movie. If this is what we're going to get, what we're going to do is we're going to let it crash and burn in November and bomb and be the worst box office opening, the worst holiday box office opening for any movie, period. So what did the creative staff do? Thankfully, the director and other people responded at Paramount and, you know, behind the movie, and they said, hey, we hear you, we understand where you're coming from, and we're going to make this right. And what did they do? They decided to hold off on the movie until this past weekend to release it, so they could fix Sonic's design, make him look much more closer to what he looks like in the games and in other media, as well as fix some other issues, maybe script, you know, revisions and stuff, you know, reshoot certain scenes, whatever. They basically did, you know, what they had to do to ensure that they could get at least a semi-successful movie. They had no idea that the fixing that they did would help make Sonic the #1 movie in the world right now. The best video game adapted movie of all time, the most successful, like I said, the #1 movie in America, the #1 family film in America, and in the world. They had no idea it was going to result in that. And what are they doing? They're thanking the fans for coming forward and making that happen, because if the fans didn't speak up, the movie wouldn't be the success it is right now. And I think that's the obvious message that, Lance is getting across in his video, like I said in the live stream. That message is you listen to the fans. And like I said, the timing is so coincidental and ironic, because the movie's being released and we're getting that we're kind of seeing that reaction here. And I'm just checking something, just checking my battery life again. But we're getting that kind of reaction here, with the Sonic movie, because fans spoke up. They said this is not what they wanted, and they're going to let the movie burn in heck, in Hades, I should say, if something wasn't done. And what happened? The creative staff behind the movie, Paramount themselves, listened and said, okay, fine, we get it. We're going to give you what you want. We're going to do right by this. And the timing of Lance's video and the reposting of it by Dylan Thomas is so ironic that it came out within the week of the movie's premiere, that I believe that's the message he's trying to get across to Ian, Flynn, IDW, and Sega. He's trying to tell them, look, if you don't have Ian Flynn and people like him and Jonathan Gray and all that, and all those kind of people, leave their ego at the door and do what's right by the fans, by giving the fans what they want when it comes to the comic and the overall franchise, then the future does not look very good for you. And that's the message I'm getting. That he just wants Ian Flynn to leave his ego at the door and say, okay guys, you wanted, let's say, the Freedom Fighters, Sally, Bunnie, Rotor, Antione, Dulcie, you want them? You got them. Next issue, the debut of the Freedom Fighters in IDW. That's what they want. They want to hear something like that. Or at least they want to see, at least get an idea of, okay, they are coming, and oh, by the way, pay attention to this issue and a certain panel in it to kind of have an idea of when and where. You might be surprised. Or, or something like, pay attention to this issue and a certain panel. That's when you'll probably get the news you've been waiting for. Or at least a hint and an acknowledgement of the news you've been waiting for. So, again, that's the obvious message I'm getting from Lance's video. That Ian, just like Paramount did, that Ian, IDW, and Sega, just like Paramount did, and the creative staff behind the movie did, he needs to leave his ego at the door, listen to what the fans want, and give the fans what they're asking for. And if they keep asking for the Freedom Fighters to appear, debut, and become part of this, the IDW book, then that's what he needs to do. If they're asking him to finally finish this whole Zombot arc and stop doing these year-long, 2 years, multi-year long, story arcs, then that's what he needs to do. That's what he needs to do. And that's all they're asking. And again, I think the reason the whole ego thing, in my opinion, comes out is because he's taken on all these different projects, and he has this belief, and anybody should have the belief of this, honestly, that he feels he could tackle all this with no problem. He's not going to have an issue. I think he is having issues, though, because we've had already, 1 or 2 delays on issues of the IDW Sonic comic, only not even a year after it's been around. So already that's kind of taking effect. But I will say this, and I said this in the live stream, I think Ian seems to want to distance himself, like I said earlier in this video as well, he wants to distance himself from being known as the man that writes Sonic comics to being known for contributing to other properties as well. That's why when I see his name associated with other upcoming projects, like let's say the My Little Pony Transformers crossover, when I see something like that, I sense almost a bit of excitement coming out from there, because that's something that Ian, even though he's just one of the writers, not the writer, but one of them, that he's more excited to sink his teeth into, because it's not Sonic related. So So yeah, I think that's obviously the problem ego-wise with Ian is he has the belief he can tackle all this, all at once. Being a multi-year story arc in the IDW Sonic comic, just like he did with the Archie Sonic comic, as well as these other stories he's helping to write for and contribute to as well. And that's being a problem. It's like I said at the beginning. It's like Linkara pointed out during his recent review of Youngblood Strike File. It's Liefeld all over again. It's Rabbot Liefeld all over again. He's trying to tackle all these situations. Oh, he was trying to tackle all these situations, and it was affecting his work. It was affecting the way he wrote. It was affecting his art style, and it was basically bringing out the worst, or not the best, in what potentially could be some good stories or origins for characters. And that's kind of what you're seeing here with Ian Flynn. You're seeing a similar trend, that he believes he can handle all this and not have a problem, but yet we're seeing that. So I think, like I said, the message I believe that Lance is trying to get across here is for Ian Flynn to leave his ego at the door. Just leave it at the door and give the fans what they're asking for. That's all they want. Just give them what they want and nothing less. So, but that's the message I'm getting across. So, that's the message I believe Lance is trying to get across in this video. But anyway, though, guys, that's all I'm going to say. I got to hop in the shower now, get myself ready for work. But let me know what you guys think down below. Tell me what your thoughts are on the whole situation. Do you agree with Lance? Do you not agree with Lance? What are your thoughts? Comment down below, and I'll talk to you later.